Another concept you brought up that I found very interesting is intuition. And you credit a little bit of this to living on a farm. Do you think it was that kind of connection and being in nature? Because that's what I see in myself. You know, when I'm around and we're always in such a information age where so much is coming at us, it sort of dulls my intuition. When I go out into the forest or something, it comes back a little bit. Do you credit that with you building your own intuition, living on a farm, being in nature a lot, doing things in nature?
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because I kind of have this curve, as many of our journeys in life are. I grew up and I was a super creative, intuitive, highly sensitive person. And I was in this family of German Swiss bioengineer, very, very stoic, kind of mechanical, science-based and all of that. And again, I credit both sides are equally important. And then I went in and I was surrounded by brothers on a farm where you're tough and you're resilient and like that's built into the genetics, right? Because you have to be to survive on a farm. And then around brothers and boys. And so I had this sense of like, I didn't really have a sense of self early on. And what I did is those pieces that were more artistic and creative and feminine and intuitive, I suppressed to some extent because it didn't fit. It didn't really fit in. But I did grow up like running around on the farm, playing outside, helping mom in the garden, growing fruits and vegetables, like very, very attached to our earth and our soil. That was just how we grew up. So I had that in me. And then medicine almost beat it out of me because our medical schools are so masculine driven, so analytical. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But what happened in medicine is the culture of medicine, at least our allopathic conventional system, trains out any sense of intuition as a value, as a something that could give you information. It's basically like there is no value in your intuition. It is all science. And that's where I'm here to say, no, it's both. So after medical school, I started like this percolating up. Oh, wait, I have this sense of something like, oh, this patient, I think they have mold exposure. And it's more of an intuitive sense as they tell their story. And then I prove it with the science, but I kept over and over and over again running into the fact that my gut instinct was right on 100% of the time. And so I was like, wait, I can trust this. So I had to kind of relearn. And back to your point of how do we get there? If you're an intuitive being, which we all have some of that, and you want to culture that, getting in touch with nature, our world right now, we're off the ground. We're on either high-rise buildings or a building that's, we're not touching the earth. We're usually away from nature. Unless you're camping and living in a tent, you're not like laying on the ground, sleeping on the ground. We're not waking up with the sunlight and going to bed at when the sun down, like our cultures before us did. So we get out of touch with the natural biorhythms of the earth. And those are some of the things that actually allow us to really touch base with our sensations. Because also the science and the masculine feminine is, do we live above our neck? I did for 40 years. I lived here in my mind, and my mind was a way to figure things out. When I started going down in my body and saying, how does that feel? And you walk into a room, you can feel this. And even if someone's not highly intuitive, they walk into the room. And if there's been someone like either an argument or someone angry, you can feel that when you walk into the room. Or if you walk in the room and there's like so much joy and happiness, those things, before you walk in, if you touch base with your body, the kinds of people you're going to meet, the kinds of situations you're going to be in. And often we kind of suppress that. So we lose touch with those pieces of data that are actually in our bodies.
It's wonderful. I often tell patients, and sometimes, people just randomly reach out to me and ask questions, sit with yourself for a little bit, hold your heart, just go in, maybe even into nature, ask yourself that a few times, see what comes up for you. Because I will never be able to give you a better answer than your own intuition, especially not knowing you.
And one thing I've taught and learned myself is, first of all, what you said, I literally will sometimes in the morning when I meditate, hold one hand under the heart, one hand on the stomach, close my eyes and touch base. I don't truly meditate. I do more lucid dreaming, but I can imagine these scenes and visions. And for creatives like you and I, sometimes that lucid dreaming is another way to tap into the subconscious and like what else is possible. Often I'll literally ask myself a question and then just meditate or think on it. And something will just almost like I said, a lucid dream, and I'll get answers and images and things. But before we were taught that has no value. The thing I was going to say, though, is expansion versus contraction. If I just say that, like what feels like, even when you breathe in, that's expansive. That feels really good to me. Contraction might be like we said, we go into a situation and we just like, oh, this doesn't feel good. Or relationship, right? So many of us hang on because we're fearful of being alone or there's some other reason. And we know intuitively this relationship doesn't make me feel great. Or this relationship makes me feel amazing. We all have friends like that, right? When we go in their presence and we get away, we spend an hour with them. And afterwards we're like, oh, I feel so good. That's the friend I want in my life. And so these things are actually, if we touch base with how our body feels, we have great knowledge in that.